Teaching Japanese. And it is about a review of Japanese language teachers in the United States to evaluate the use of cultural context in theory and practice. And we didn't have quite a smooth setup there, so I'll give you a minute to get set up. I apologize for that.
Kaya ako kakaroon sa mga kitawin ng Deutsche Speed. 外国語を知ることに興味を持ったことありますか? Me too. In particular, Japanese. Ever since 9/11 and globalization of the economy, it is of great importance that America's educational system includes foreign language teaching. We sent our soldiers into wars and into foreign countries with little knowledge of their language and culture. Likewise, companies sent representatives on business ventures with interpreters, but little understanding the knowledge of culture. This can lead to many mistakes. My personal interest is the teaching of Japanese, since I have knowledge of language and culture. There is a shift in teaching languages from teaching mainly vocabulary and sentence structures to content-based approach. The inclusion of contents has to be introduced as soon as students have knowledge of basic vocabulary. This way of teaching Japanese in the US is relatively new, and many textbooks have not caught up yet. Therefore, a lot of teachers have to devise their own lesson plans and materials. Regarding contents, there are a variety of definitions like subject matter, such as economy, geography, and women's issues. More recently, the following is also considered contents: to be aware of one's own culture, to know other cultures, to build a bridge between cultures. Very good example of teaching contents can be found at North Salinas High School in California. Mr. Azamayo is a Japanese language teacher, and he was awarded as the 2012 the National Language Teacher of the Year. To learn a little bit about his teaching, you can find his video clip on YouTube. Now, I want to give you an overview of Japanese language teaching in the US today. The first data is obtained from Japan Foundation. Japanese teachers teach not only language, but also culture. What do we learn about Japanese culture? Art, architecture, music, and food. The question is, why language teachers teach culture in language classes? Is that necessary? According to American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, the answer is yes. And here's why. It is necessary to include culture in language classes because it meets the national standards. The standards was composed by researchers who were Japanese language teachers at all levels across the nation. In 1999, the researchers concluded to emphasize 5 C's as well as the language of use. Here comes the question. How do teachers achieve this goal? Although there are many ways to do it, Miriam met The author of content-based instruction defined terms making decision categorized into 5 methods. The first method is called immersion. A content teacher immerses students in the language and culture. The next method is called sheltered course. A content teacher teaches a subject matter such as economy entirely in Japanese. This example may show you that the teacher teaches geography, as you see the map of Japan on the right side. The next method, number 3, is called adjunct. This is unique because it is one course consisting of 2 classes. In one class, a language teacher teaches grammar in English. In another class, a content teacher teaches culture in Japanese. The idea is that students can learn effectively the cultural class because they are already prepared in the language class. Let's move on to the next method, theme-based. Language teacher teaches culture and language at the same time by choosing a theme. In this example, the teacher's theme was about his vacation plan in summer, visiting Okinawa. You already know from previous present that Okinawa is very defining culture, but also it's well known for the tropical climate and beautiful oceans. That's why he's showing his students his swim trunk with the design chili pepper. Why is that? Because most of the students in Salinas are Hispanic. For them, chili pepper is their diet. The last method has a long name. A language teacher uses the textbooks to teach grammar and introduce culture occasionally. These 5 methods may reflect the students' motivations. And I have got the top 5 motivation among American students from Japan Foundation. Take a look at this. A brief introduction of Japanese language teaching in the US today. And content-based instruction in theory is not complete. Now we're going to see real examples. The following is data from my personal interviews with teachers in my area, which is Santa Cruz County. First of all, where can we take Japanese courses in Santa Cruz? And here is the list. There are Japanese teachers, 3 at UCSC, 1 at Kotaro College, and 2 teachers at the private language school. I interviewed with 5 of them. Then I have got the following data. As you see, Japanese teachers in Santa Cruz like content-based instruction. Here is the question. Do they use 5 methods? Like theme-based, adjunct? Maybe none? Well, let's find out. Next, we're going to see real activities in each method. The first 2 examples from UCSC are as follows. Wait a minute. Didn't work. Okay, all right, examples from Kotaro College. Finally, examples from the private language school. When the teachers explain the successful examples, activities that they had used so far, they mentioned the school policy. Why? Because it had an impact on their making curriculum and choosing textbooks. Here is a list of school policies. Let me make sure the definition of basic language skills. That means reading, writing, speaking, or listening. I also want to expand the meaning of the school policy for UCSC. Japanese teachers at UCSC want to enable their students to deal with anything, anywhere, anytime. The teachers believe that cultures change, so do people. However, the more students know the examples, the better they can come up with to deal with what they encounter not only today, but also in the future. Now, you may remember that Japanese teachers in Santa Cruz have taught Japanese for 20 years on average. That means they started teaching around 1990, right? However, content-based instruction began since 1999. There's a time difference. Then I felt that the teachers must have changed their way of teaching. As a matter of fact, they shared with me how content-based instruction affected them. Now, let me share with you their voices. I want to add one thing to this. Although teachers realize the benefits of applying technologies to the classroom to teach language and culture of Japan, they don't think they have technology skills. They are willing to learn, but they don't have time. Moreover, continuing education for foreign language teachers is absent. What do? Is to teach each other and learn a new way of teaching. As you see, there are different examples of teaching Japanese in centers. But the root is content-based instruction. The methods are still experimental at certain levels, but all the teachers agree with the positive effect. Which content-based instruction works best? Depends on the course objective, students' language proficiency, and the students' personalities. Language group activities, intellectually stimulating themes, and real materials like newspaper and maps are all inspirational. The teachers utilize them so that students can be productive in a community and business with their skills. But also, the students can be linguistically and culturally literal. Foreign language teachers are more like facilitators. Different way of teaching. That is, content-based instruction is one for them to equip. Here is my message for all of you. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. We've got about 5 minutes for questions.
Please.
I have two questions. One is, you mentioned different methods of content-based learning. In my own process of learning Japanese, I realized that balance was a key factor. Do you feel that the schools that are implementing some of these content-based materials may need more balance? In other words, using multiple techniques instead of focusing on one area? Like, do you think that more balance is necessary in the way that we teach Japanese here?
Well, thank you for bringing up the question on the issues in it. Well, what I think balance is necessary. But what I found out through the interviews is that all the teachers, except certain college, they use multiple methods. And it, as I mentioned in the conclusion, that it depends on the course objective and the students' personalities and the levels. So they utilize several methods at the same time. But only one method is not useful. I wouldn't say useful, but they don't use it. One is adjunct. You may remember that there are two teachers required. And because of the budget cut, we cannot afford, unfortunately. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, my second question would be, you showed a slide about the man showing his vacation from Okinawa and using something relatable. I personally think that's also very important. I think that you have to find something relatable that's relative to your life to learn a language. Do you think that the schools are effectively doing that?
Well, the question is, do teachers effectively use those materials that the teachers can connect with students immediately throughout class? Well, in my view, I want them to do it, but the reality is, unfortunately, this is just the beginning. And because he was sort of he was the first person to apply this technology or method, and that's why he was awarded as the National Teacher of the Year. And he was now inspiring through the meetings with school. He's a visiting professor around Montreal Bay Area, but Bay Area, they are so passionate. They have passion about learning foreign languages, so they invite the teacher, Mr. Iwazama, and give a lecture to all the students, and they are inspired. Did I answer the question? Thank you.
I have a question.
Please.
Could you talk a little bit more about sheltered courses? Those seem both interesting and a little bit dangerous. So for example, it would be like teaching mathematics in Japanese. Did you see that in practice? How does that work? Are students able to show competency both in the subject matter and in the language, I guess?
Let's see. So first of all, let me be clear if I understand your question. Also, shared course seems to be a little bit dangerous because the students can, for example, if the students are taking math class, but entirely in Japanese, do they understand very well? Or even can they start studying? I think it's possible, but I didn't mention that the students need certain language skills to attend the class. And then especially shorter course is used for graduate levels. It's not applicable undergraduate or even high school or middle school. However, they are trying their best and they believe that there is a way. But in terms of, probably I can make it clear that, so for example, I am from Japan and I'm now using English to study math, for example. And it took me more than 6 years to be able to use my English. And now I'm taking all math classes at the college level. My major used to be computer science. And it's very fun, different discipline, different way of teaching. But it's also good that I learned different ways of understanding the concept of math or techniques because it was only available in English, wasn't. But also I could use some from Japan and that was very useful, which were not available in the United States.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yes, I know that you sort of studied Santa Cruz County.
Yes.
And I'm not from Santa Cruz County, and I don't really know the demographics of how many people, Japanese live there. And so my question really is, do you believe that Santa Cruz County is representative of what California or the nation in general, the way that they teach Japanese? Or do you think that, say, in other places where there is a higher population of Japanese or people of Japanese descent, that they teach Japanese in a better way?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the question. That's a really awesome question. First of all, Santa Cruz County is well known for a surf town. Like a town, it's beautiful. Yeah, just went to the boardwalk, by the way. It's very nice. Demographics. More than half of the population is Caucasian. Over one third is Hispanic. And Asian, especially Japanese, it's under 2%. It's very small population. And then Santa Cruz County they prioritize Spanish as a foreign language learning at K-12s, then Italian, French, and so on. So they don't really emphasize it. And then I don't believe that Santa Cruz County represents the entire California, Japanese language teaching. What I found was that there are 260 schools in California where they offer Japanese courses. And this is number one. I'm very proud of California, especially Bay Area. So advanced. And then what was the second question?
That was pretty much the question, whether you believe that in the Bay Area, for example, that they teach Japanese in a better way.
Yes, they are better. They are applying a lot of content-based instruction, especially theme-based. It's very used in a short course at graduate school. But again, as I mentioned, this is just the beginning. Only they have 10 years of history. So it is up to the current teachers with experience and also future teachers like me.
Wonderful, thank you. Very unpopular if I make you late for lunch. So we're ready for lunch. I'd just like to thank you all once more for your attention. Let's give one more round of applause to all three of us.